Hello and welcome to this playthrough of Factorio, where I am building a megabase on Earth. I am using a mod, Cities of Earth, focusing on the Old World Hemisphere. My goal is to reach 10,000 science per minute with a rail-based design. The resources are set to maximum size and density, and biters and pollution are turned off. The mod list is shown in the description, as well as a link to my Twitch channel, High Speed. Please come visit me there. Questions and comments are welcome. Thank you for watching. Make this less than or equal to 10. Yeah, now it works. So the fact that there's no D signal, what did I do on the other one? What did I do here? Because this works. What's your decider combinator here? First of all, where the fuck are you? There you are. You assholes, get out of my way. So what am I doing here? If anything is less than 0, and then you're saying all of these have negative values. So that's a constant combinator I would need to bring into this, which I've already got a constant combinator. So if I say what would I want to call a train here? I would want to call a train when I can load a wagon can hold 4,000 of one stack size of 100, right? Yeah, so you've got 4,000. So if you're at negative 4,000, I'm going to be a bitch to program across scale. So you don't care, you just go green, green. I don't care about you anymore. Ah. Big shit. So I don't care about the train station. That's output result. I don't care about the lamp. That's output result. You are wired for input and output going together. You are wired for input only. Or output only. So you're outputting a bunch of things. If you were... So you need to be on the same network. So this red wire can't be red. It needs to be green. Because that way you're masking what's here. There we go. We're going to fuck with you. And we're going to put you at here. So now on the pole, we have negative numbers here and a negative number there. Because A is happy, B is very unhappy, C is very unhappy. But I'm I'm doing this wrong still. Because this is going to result in the train coming all the fucking time. So if a train has 4,000 in it, and it comes here and unloads, each one of these is theoretically going to take 1,000. So I need to call a train when this has room for 1,000. So my target goal here is not 4,000, but 1,000. Not 2,000. Get your hands on the right keys. Now this is going to be kind of ugly when it gets to the loader where there's 6 of them, but we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to assume that's balanced loading. So now what we're saying is that A is satisfied, B is satisfied, D is slightly unsatisfied, and AC is satisfied, B is very dissatisfied, and C is very dissatisfied. Now if we throw a whole bunch more into D to get it close to satisfied, although B is technically satisfied because it rounded it up to 1K, I don't think it is. And then we'll throw all these in here. And now, okay, so now D is still negative 96. Fascinating. So when everybody else was there, it was good. That wasn't enough. Well, yeah, we've still got it here. I'll see what this looks like. Negative 46. Perfect, 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 perfect. So you take this, and now I no longer have I on my network now. Because I don't care if your output goes back on my network. So I is 1, Y is I 1. Why am I requesting a train? Oh, because I set it to 10. Now I'm not requesting a train. The other one I want to manipulate, man. I don't want to have to keep going to these other ones. So if I put 1,000 in here exactly, then you're at 0 and no train. If I take 1 away from you, you're unhappy and you want a train. If I give them all back to you, you're happy and you don't want a train. If I take multiples away from multiple, I still want only 1 train. So this satisfies my criteria. But how do I get a second train? And I've now got more combinators. And Mucky, let me know if you want me to explain in detail why this balancer actually works for me. I can show you that. It's a kooky reason, but it does indeed work. No, not that I know of. As a matter of fact, there's some people who've pointed out that filter inserters are faster because they don't look ahead. They just they don't they don't have to decide if what they're about to pick up um, because they're only allowed to pick up what they can pick up, and so they look to say, "Are you what I can pick up? Yes, pick it up." Versus, "Are you what I already have in my hand?" Which means they have to look at what's in their hand and they have to look at what's on the belt. So filter inserters are apparently a micro tick faster. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What, this little extra thing? Yeah, I need it. I tested it too. And the reason I need it is because I'm only pulling from one side of the belt most of the time. I'm always pulling from the inside. And so that little extra piece helps to put stuff on the other side of the belt, keeping both sides of the belt working, keeping both of these working. Now, having said that, in my Discord, total tangent here, watch my brain go, squirrel! Whee! Let's look at what Protocol did. Protocol did something that I'm just like, I wonder how I can work that into my shit, because this is good. Protocol did this. And supposedly gets some really good unbalancing or unloading numbers. And if you look at the footprint, gotta get rid of this. If you look at the footprint, yeah, it interferes with some other throughput things, but I can get over that. But he claims that is faster than what I am doing now. It's just that it uses both sides of the track. Yeah, King, you said that the amount of splitters I have is crazy, and I can't disagree. Also, I talked to Mango about this loader, and he suggested that I go to a 4 loader, 3 inserter design. He suggested that I just go to this. Which, that might happen too. If I've got to go through my whole fucking factory and change things again, I might as well. Because the performance difference between loading a train this way and loading a train with all of this extra splitters, you're trading UPS for train performance. But if it's not calling the train until the train is necessary, then it's going to load. Yeah, it's going to load 1/3 slower, but you're also not eating UPS in terms of splitters. Yeah, excellent points. That's the first one, Mucky, is what convinced me, and the second one is a real selling point because even if you set UPS aside steady state, and I've kind of architected this to support that because I've overbuilt. Right? If Kirk tells me I need 13,000, and that means 42 of something, or 130,000, and I need 42 of something, well, I'm doing 48 of them. Right? Case in point, this green circuit assembler setup right here. If we look at this, I'm short one copper cable assembler on this. So this is not going to provide 21,000 green circuits a minute, right? Because it's going to be short, and that's going to cause it to be short, and it's going to be like 20,000 because, the way that works out. But according to the calculator, and according to Kirk's calculator, I need is this with satellites? Without satellites, I need 42 green circuit assemblers total. Well, that's 32. I've got another one here. I've got another one here. Hi, Team McIntyre. I hope y'all are having a good night. Today's Saturday, right? I'm not significantly overbuilt, no. What I'm seriously thinking of doing, and this is part of this is an education on watching your base get built. Train congestion is a major problem. Hence, I've overbuilt some of this rail networks, and I'm moving things around. And you and I have discussed this. By the way, if you want to get into my Discord, you and I can discuss this even more, even here on stream, if you don't mind. But part of what I'm trying to do here is to minimize train network congestion, because I think overbuilding is not a problem. I think resources are not a problem. Getting the resources to where they need to be in the time that they need to get there is the problem. So when you look at something like this thing runs like a fucking kitten. This thing just purrs. I love it. But what I've tried to do is what I call neighborhoods. Right? I need 42 of these green circuit assemblers. I've got 64. Because these are not running at peak. Even though this says I have 16 of them here, I gotta count that as like 14. Well, I could join your Discord. I can't have this song playing here. Hello, let me adjust my Discord needs to turn on, and Discord overlay needs to turn on, and now people should be able to hear and see if you talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, they can hear you. I can't hear you much, but I can turn you up.
Well, that's something that I've said to you in various different ways, I guess. That yes, you can build it, but you've got to feed it. By me feeding it, that definition of feeding it is the getting the trains in, and that was the problem that I had. And I tried to go for a very generic, broad solution that would pull trains in from anywhere. And when I do a large MegaBase again, which will be before Factorio 2 comes out, I will do districts. I'm not going to have something that is completely generic and can pull from one place to one of the base to the other, because train congestion is just absolute killer. And it's interesting, the travel time for trains is really quite significant. And if you look at your throughput of a train, load time, travel time, and unload time. And so that travel time is just an absolute pig.
Yeah, a couple of
That I
things.
learned.
Yeah, there's a bunch there I want to come and touch on. First off, if you're going to get a MegaBase in before 2.0 is released, you need to start on that this week, or last week. Secondly, you said district, and I love that word because I use the term neighborhood, but I'm going to explain why neighborhood is different than district. So what I have here is I call this a rocket silo complex, right? I've got 4 rocket silos being satisfied by these, and I chose 4 because it's a reasonable size for my builds. I looked at how much can a column of resources be delivered for a train, and it worked out that 4. King, you're the only one sick enough to do that, and Reddit royally trashed you for it because you need to see a psychotherapist. You're a genius, but holy fuck, that's crazy what you did. So, back to this districts and neighborhoods and complexes. So, I called it a complex, you kind of called it a district, but that's the concept is isolate what you're doing. If you think back before I started working on the MegaBase, I asked whether or not I could do 3 distinct rail networks, one for high priority, one for intermediates, and one for raw materials. Now, I got rid of the third one by getting rid of the raw materials by doing in-place smelting, which is what I got from you, but I'm doing it with belts. Also, because I'm not using default resources. Hi, Ed. Because I'm not doing default resources, I've essentially got infinite materials here. I'm not going to have to rebuild these. And even if I did, the distance isn't significant. But then it comes down to what I call neighborhoods, where I'm placing things in close proximity, relatively, to where they need to be. And in this case, in research, this is a great example. This is a neighborhood. Now, I recently had to move the plastic. I didn't want to have to, but I needed to move this intersection because it was too close to this intersection. Which, by the way, I am streaming on Twitch, or on Discord if you want, to real-time see it.
I might do that.
So, I moved these. Sorry, I've turned down the Spotify a little bit, so it's not messing up our conversation. So I moved this plastic out of here, but this is like a perfect neighborhood.
Okay, so just let me jump in for a second there and ask you a question. Let's look at your green circuits. So your green circuits need iron and copper, right? It's a neighborhood. The trains don't know to go, hey, I'm going to pick that copper that's really close to me because it's convenient. They don't know that. So unless you actually separate that out, the trains will go, hey, I need copper. Where's copper? Copper's all the way over there. Don't give a shit. Send it over. And so that's when I'm talking about the districts. And you know how I've got that general combinator, constant combinator to say, hey, this is copper. This is a copper provider. I'm probably going to change it to go, well, do you know what? All my circuits are going to be together. I'll do red circuits, green circuits, and maybe blue circuits together. But this is copper for circuits, and I'm going to pick copper that's close by, and then that way I can guarantee that the copper travel time isn't huge. So that's what I'm talking about with districts. And so if you've still got one big train network, the trains don't know to go, hey, I'm going to grab it from a closer area.
Now, one point is, that I saw a little bit, but for the most part, what I watched, because I sat here and watched this for hours, for the most part, what I saw was that the train, when like this green circuit, when this thing opened up for copper, in general, the train that came to satisfy it was the train that was closest. Now, it could get out of whack and things could go south. But earlier today, I was thinking about this because this was such the perfect thing. It was like, how do I get these trains from this copper to go to this green and this red and this green without screwing things up? Now, mind you, this rail network in the rocket silo complex, as I've mentioned, this rail network is isolated, right? It's broken, so these resources can't go anywhere, and they're named. So I don't really care, but they're named based on their geographic region or their complex name, right? So it helps with that. But something I thought of doing here, because I can, what first came into my mind is, what if I build a stacker right here and I modify, because I can put a stacker here, bunk, right? And I put train stations in it because this has been suggested to me. And I dedicate them. Well, then I don't want these things not going anywhere. But when I look at the production numbers, right, this thing's going to need 20,000 green circuits, and this thing's going to need 30,000 green circuits. All right, well, this one is producing 43,000 green circuits, and this one is producing 43,000. So all told, these things' green circuit needs are satisfied. So I want these green circuit trains to stay here and not fuck off and go satisfy somebody else. So I overbuild, but I overbuild the network. So here's what popped in my head about 3 hours, 45 minutes ago. Right out of a meditation, this came into my head. I'm not kidding. I was meditating, and this popped into my head. How can I have a train that is using this copper and will come to this or this preferentially, but if I run short, another train can still come in and satisfy the need? So what came to my head is, if I put unloading stations here, one for copper and one for iron, and I name them uniquely for this, as you called it, a neighborhood or a district, and I name them, and then I take one of the trains from this copper, maybe both, or two of them, and I give them a route that says, you come to this copper first, and you sit there, and your job is to sit here and wait for one of these coppers to open up, right?
Yep.
So that a train is essentially dedicated to this neighborhood, but not all trains are dedicated to this neighborhood, and I don't have to micromanage it. I essentially, and this is something I'm considering doing as of today, I'm essentially setting aside a couple of trains who have preferential activity for this pair of green circuits, or this, because I can also do another one right here. And I'm not going to do that for all of them. But I have the room in this stacker because there's 4 stackers and there's 4 unloaders. If I had to re-architect things to do it, I would do it as a separate entity, right?
Yep.
And I still may do that because the problem is the train is going to go get itself stuck here. So if I put a stacker here, something like here, and I give it stations instead of, and maybe it's not this kind of stacker, maybe it's a flared stacker like this, right?
Yep.
And I put stations on the end of these, which ironically I used to have stations on this last time I did it, is that if I put stations here, then I can have 1 or 2 trains that are dedicated to this neighborhood or this district who stick around and wait for one of these to call them. And the only difference is I add the train stacker here, and I give the train an extra station.
So I have tried that where I tried, and it worked. Except what I tried it on was rocket parts, which was a poor choice because
they stack for shit
so poorly. Yeah. So, and that was before I'd said, hey, I am not moving rocket parts on trains. But that concept of having that intermediate name station that says, hey, you're for this particular material for this particular neighborhood or district does work, and it works. It works quite well. And pardon me. And that's kind of what I was thinking. So you've seen what I do, and I have copper plate provider, copper plate requester. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break that down and go copper plate circuit provider, copper plate circuit requester. Now, if you're doing a small base and you're only doing 1 or 2 trains like that, it's a pain in the ass. It's not worth it. But when you are dealing with a thumping great MegaBase with a whole lot of trains that are moving stuff all over the place, then I think the investment in having that extra layer of management is worthwhile, because as you've seen and as you've experienced, and as everyone else is experiencing, mega bases are not. And you made a beautiful comment quite recently. It's moving from being an engineering problem to being a logistics problem.
Yeah, just like
And
biters. But
this is
yeah.
now this is what you're combating now.
Yeah.
And
And
this is what you need to try and work out.
yeah,
It's
and massaging
fantastic.
rail paths and stuff is part of it, and distancing is part of it. You know, not cramming things in too tightly is part of it, which I'm still doing. I can't fucking stop
You
myself
are.
from doing it
You are.
because I've got all this real
And-
estate and I'm not using it. But here's an example
so
of what
that-
you're talking about. I have two
your
coal
issue that
patches.
you've got. Yep. Sorry, go on.
I got two coal patches here, and I have two things that need coal: grenades, which are up here in the northeast, and plastic, which are down here in the Arabias. So what I did is I renamed this coal unloader to Research Coal Grenade Unloader,
Yep.
and then I didn't rename the. I should have renamed this one. For some reason, I didn't. Yeah, I did. I renamed this to be Research Coal Grenade Loader, and then I have 3 trains that are dedicated for that, and then I have the partner is for plastic. Research Coal Plastic. So I did exactly what you're talking about doing with coal. I don't really want to do that with iron and
No.
copper, because it becomes too much of a micromanaged thing. But
So if you go back to your grenade one, the research coal grenade, what you've done there is you split it down into 3 layers. And what I'm suggesting is, instead of going down 3 layers, maybe just do it between 2. It's that fine line to walk. Yes, you get more control about where your trains go, and you can really optimize their pathing. But there's a lot of effort involved, and it's a lot of micromanagement.
well, when you
may
say
not
3
have-
layers, because I've got research coal and grenade in there.
Yep. You have.
Well, see, the reason it says research is just for me to clarify, because otherwise I've got coal over here being used for plastic over here. Right? Is because I didn't want, everything has function, resource. I'm adding so like this is rocket silo coal, but it's the India rocket silo. So I have to have 3 layers of depth to it, because I've got that what you call sectors, what I call complexes. Essentially, research is a complex for me. Now, I've gone overboard here because I moved red and green science out of the Arabias, which I'm thinking of doing with blue science as well.
Yep. Yep.
But blue science is tied to oil, which I don't want to have to set up another oil processing complex.
Acid.
But acid, yes. So with these, I actually put, because I have a green circuit build here. So I have a green circuit build called Research Red and Green Green Circuits. So when you look at these, it's like, well, it's not just research, it's research dedicated to red and green. Right, so this is my district for red and green science. I didn't want to go just a red district and just a green district, because it didn't make sense resource-wise in terms of putting it needed, I have 144 smelters on here. In order to function properly, it needs like 148. So I had to build 2 smelter arrays. But these smelter arrays are dedicated to red and green science. So, we're talking about the same things.
We are.
And they're all, I think, necessary in order to be able to get things to flow. And I did, like on military science here, it only has one entrance to this neighborhood. Right? The thing of it is that walls at full tilt, fucking faceless. Get out of the way! walls at full tilt need more brick than one brick outpost can provide, right? They need 54,000 a minute, and this thing can only provide 43. So while I could set these trains to be just for walls, I would have to dedicate at least one of these trains to also be walls, which means that it's going to come out here and go there. So I can't wholly contain all of military with just one stone output. But I've got included here, I've got an iron and I've got a copper. But when you total up all of what this needs in terms of iron and copper, there's a chance that I'm not satisfying enough of it. And my God, what good stuff rate calculator is, because look at what I can do. I'm over on copper and I'm way under on iron, right? So this tells me
there's a few things there.
How beautiful is this?
That are going to come up with other stuff.
Yeah.
So low density structures, right? They use a lot of copper.
Oh yeah.
Yep, copper, plastic, and steel. There are other things that use a shitload of steel. So you're going to find that. A couple of other things that you've just said. Your one entrance, right? One entrance, I can rename that for you, choke point.
Yeah.
Right? And not choking in the good way. The other thing that you've got, the stacker that you're talking about with your flare. Yep, fantastic. Love it. Guess what? Choke point.
Yeah.
And something that you and a couple of others, but I think it was predominantly you, because you were louder and talked more, really helped me with my base, was why have your entrance and exit at the same choke point? Why not have it come in somewhere and go out so that they don't interfere with each other? Because you've got so many resources and they're very, very dense. That's fantastic. That's a real advantage. The challenge you're going to have is you've got so many trains, you are going to have train congestion. Now, with trains speeding up and slowing down, that's a real problem because it takes time for them to get up to speed and get out of the way. While they're in the way, your intersection is blocked. And so having it so dense and so tight is going to cause some challenges when you have a whole lot of trains on the network. When this thing really arcs up and everything's feeding and going all over the place, it is going to create some congestion for. It's going to create some challenges, and that's something that you'll need to consider and be ready for as well.
So a couple of things, not to push back. Well, I'll push back a little bit, but
no. It's discussion.
So yeah, I don't consider this neighborhood entrance a choke point, right? And the reason is because it would only be a choke point if if a high volume needed to come in and out, right? And that's kind of the whole point of creating the neighborhood.
Yep.
Right, and the neighborhood idea here is that assume that I had enough bricks to satisfy, right? Like right here, I've got enough copper to satisfy everything I'm doing here. So these copper trains technically don't need to leave here. They will because other trains are going to call them. So that's something to address. But like, for example, the yellow ammo never goes through this intersection. Red ammo doesn't go through this intersection. Grenades don't. Walls don't. They go up here and they go to their science thing. So when I create a neighborhood, the primary focus is what's going to travel through this neighborhood entrance junction is resources for external places if I'm overproducing, resources to supplant if I'm underproducing, and the final output of the science factory or the science producer. But all the intermediates, so the idea of a neighborhood for me, or what you call a sector, the idea of a sector is that the only thing that flows through its externally connected junction is output and input. And input is as little as possible because you try and capture the resources in the sector as well. But intermediates should never go through that intersection. So that helps to reduce that congestion.
Let's have a look at that one. So if you look at your stackers, you've got stackers there for, 6 trains, 4 trains, shitloads of trains.
Oh, which for
Yep.
like the walls?
Yeah, right, what we're looking at right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
I tried to take a generic approach. They all
Yep.
have the same head unit, which is a total of 6 lanes. If it's totally maxed out, right, the thing can handle 4 unloads and 1 load. So I think
Yep.
it's
Okay.
right.
So look at that. Now look at what's going in and out of those. So you've either over-designed the rail network, and I understand why you're doing that to keep it generic, but your intersections there are very, very small. So I'm going to call them choke points. Anytime you've got an intersection, so the length of your train, I'm looking at your intersections there, and I'm looking at how far apart they are. They need to be at least the length of a train, because if they're not, when one gets stuck, you're going to close up the intersection.
Right.
And if I go to your 4-way intersections that you've got, your little 4-way intersections, can we just go to one of those little 4-ways? Right. That's a problem for you, because in my experience, what I've found is that the intersections need to be, this is why I've had those ridiculously large intersections. An intersection needs to be large enough that a train, if it needs to, can park in that intersection and other trains can get past, because otherwise, again, that speed up slow, the slow down speed up, the acceleration deceleration is so slow for these trains that what happens is that something sits there and it clogs up your intersection. And okay, you might think, all right, well, it only clogs it up for a second, but every train that's coming into that intersection has to slow down and then speed up and get out. And while it's speeding up to get out and going through that intersection, it's blocking it for another train. So that is something else for you to consider as well with the length of the train. So I'm not actually talking about in between intersections. I'm talking about in the intersection. So in that intersection, if that train, right, is what you've got there is turning right and it's going up north. So it's coming from you do the other side trades, don't you? So
Yeah, it
let's
doesn't
just
matter.
say it's coming north or south or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So it's going from vertical to horizontal, and it gets caught on something, it is going to completely block your intersection. No other train will be able to go through because the lights will light up. It lights up like a Christmas show. And
Yeah,
in
it
fact,
does.
something that's really quite interesting to do is to turn on the debug mode to show the signals from space. Actually, no, it's not debug mode. It's one of the map settings. And looking at all the lights, looking at the red and green lights, when you fire this thing up and have a whole lot of trains going through it, and you can see those intersections when you've got a big train coming through and it's deviating, it's turning 90 degrees or 270, you'll see, I think you'll see those intersections will light up pretty bloody red.
Yeah, they do, and
and
it is a
that's a
concern.
problem for movement. Yeah.
So what I've tried to do was to space out the intersections rather than have larger intersections. A lot of what I do has I overly rail signal, right? Rather than normal, I overly chain signal. So I run the chain signal far enough so that a train can get out. I have a smaller intersection, and what I've learned is that I need essentially 4 or 5 power poles between in order to be able to have that space. But you really can't see it because I've got so many fucking trees. And this is an example of where I've screwed it up, because this should also be a chain signal, and possibly this, because if I'm going to get a train to completely clear the intersection, then I need it to be able to have what I call a runoff. Right? But if you look at the ass end of the southern tip of this train,
Yep.
there's a signal right there. As long as the ass end of that train can get past that signal, the intersection is open, right? Which means that the signals that are here, this one and this one, should have been chain signals, because essentially I'm taking these and turning them into the exit of that intersection. I'm saying to a train, don't come into this intersection unless your nose can get to this one. So I'm applying the concept of what you're saying, but I'm doing it over here. Now, on the other side of that, these are these should have been the same way, so that trains would only come in, and here's an example of where I whacked out the extra stackers, so that a train wouldn't even come into this intersection unless it could get into its stacker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I am aware of that, and where I see it, I take action for it. But part of what I'm doing is, A, leaving that big gap. And like, for example, one of the things I've set on my list of things to do is this puppy needs to move north because I need this neck, because I've been watching this, and this is getting really congested. Now, this used to be a four-way, and it was the source of my problem, right? And I used to have red science and green science here. Hi, Zoe. You might recognize the sexy voice on the Discord with me here. Say hi to Monkey.
Yes. Hi, Monkey.
So,
hello, Zoe.
This intersection was the two main problems I've had here in research is that I have put too much stuff in too small of an area, and I had a couple of choke points, one of which was purple science and one of which was red-green science. So the third thing you mentioned earlier I wanted to touch on is you were talking about, well, I'm going to put, like all the green science together. I'm moving away from that. I had all the green science in here and all the red science right here. And that to me didn't work because too many trains were coming into an area, and I was getting no value out of short intermediate travel, right? This is a perfect example of where I actually want multi-layer train rails, because I want this green circuit to only feed this blue circuit. And so this four-way is specifically designed so that these trains, and I may end up doing this, is that this train may get relabeled so that these unloaders here, these unloaders here might get renamed to be green circuit, blue circuit unloader, like that, right? And then this train is designated so that these two only service this thing, and they're just shooting across. To me, that's a local intersection. We've got some of that going on. But I've mulled over, and I'm not kidding about this, I have mulled over if this green circuit were on this side, right, if I switch these two, having the green circuit train not come back out to the main rail. But I won't do that. I will fail this fucking MegaBase before I will compromise.
So that's a really,
on that
on
modular concept of how how this item producer works. Hi, Mango. The two lane. Let me answer Mango real quick. The 2-lane intersection has a decent throughput, not the best, but the beauty of it I can't pass up. The 4-lane intersection was put together for me by somebody, and I think it has a pretty terrible throughput, but it looks really good because there
is a throughput tester. That
that's Cyclomactic turned me onto it. It's in a Factorio form, and I've kind of taken a compromise and sort of working with it. And like I said, I just the other thing I wanted to touch on. Go ahead. You were going to say something when I interrupted with the 4 ways and the intersection.
No. You keep going. You've got the flow. Because I've forgotten what I was going to say anyway. But you keep going.
Yeah.
And I'll remember.
Well, there's 2 items. There's 2 items. Somewhere last week, I realized that I'm using 383 trains, and there is no fucking reason on the planet that I didn't put one more locomotive on each end and go 484.
Yes.
Oh my God! Smack the forehead. Should have had a V8. Jeez, because it wouldn't have changed the architecture at all, but it changes.
You know what it does change?
Acceleration.
Changes the acceleration. Exactly.
Right. And the second thing is, I've had several people bug me about this, and I've started to look into it pretty seriously, because when I refactored this rocket fuel thing, Somebody said, why aren't you using rocket fuel? I'm like, because everything's, or not rocket, nuclear fuel. Because
Yep.
everything's set up for rocket fuel. But when I looked at what does it take to make
Change
nuclear
it.
fuel, I was like, I just need 235. And I happen to have a shit ton of 235 just laying around. So one more train, and it needs to be in a centrifuge. Okay, so this thing gets a partner of a couple of centrifuges right here, and then all these convert to nuclear fuel. And it's like, God damn it.
Massive.
God damn it. Where was that when I started?
I've remembered what it was I was going to say. So do you have a list of, and I'll call them bottom lines. These are things that you won't compromise on. You know, you've just said, "I'll fail the base before I do this." Do you have that? Do you have that documented? Because
Documented,
that would be interesting.
not much.
I think it would be interesting for your viewers as well, because you know, when we're saying, "Hey, look at this, look at that. Have you tried this? Have you tried that?" It would be interesting to go, "Hey, well, look, these are some of my design philosophies or bottom lines or whatever you want to call them."
Yeah,
And I'm sticking to this.
As you were talking,
And
there's
then you can talk about why you're doing it. You know.
yeah, there's a couple of them there. I probably should do that. Well, one of them, like what you and King had mentioned, I won't do loops. This is tree and branch rail network, no loops. As a matter of fact, to the point where in this silo complex, I had a loop. This used to be a triple loop. These were straight through, just like this is. And I designed, I engineered this so that they will not, you shall not pass. So there's no loops here, because here's actually what happened that just blew my fucking mind. This is the rocket fuel loader, right? I used to have a rocket fuel unloader right here. See how there's an extra set of signals, and the unloading station would fit right here, right? So the rocket fuel loading train was sitting right here, and I told it to go to the station that was right there, right? But notice it's on the other side of the rail. So a train that is routed to go there, right, will only go there if it's coming in from up here, right? It will only go there if it's coming in from above. So what did this effing train do? It went and looped through here. Because this used to be a loop. This train, and they were not shut off. This train looped through that. It found the shortest loop it could. So never.
And that is why I don't.
Will I use loops? Well, that's not why I don't use loops. Loops actually can stop your base because trains can get stuck behind each other, which I'm sure you've seen. So that's just the general philosophy, is I will not use loops. I'm going to primarily use 2-lane rails, 4 where I think I need it. But in terms of functionality, I am going to persist in this 12 beacon column, right, where these are not balanced. Now, I had to balance the fluid flow, and I didn't want to. I don't like that I did this. And with this new unloader design and loader design that I'm working on right now, I may be able to remove this, because maybe I can get the same value out of fluids as I can out of solids. Right? Because if I can figure this out for solids, I should be able to figure it out for fluids. But fluids doing this little thing here solve the problem. Well, now I've got the problem in solids, and I don't have a simple solution like this. I don't have just shoot one lane over there, left, right, and it'll figure it out. And I don't like this, because I get problems with, like, plastic, where plastic isn't working right because it doesn't unbalance correctly, like this fucker.
Show me. Can you? This is exactly where I wanted you to go next. Can you show me one of your big plastic builds?
I don't have big. I have this.
Oh, okay. Show me. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, that's cute. How do you do your plastic builds? You do your plastic build.
All of my stuff is determined by how much belt can one wagon, can one column support.
Okay.
right?
So no. The bit that you've got there is that you bring in your petroleum gas. So you bring that in on the train, and you bring in your coal on a train, and you do your magic, and you make your plastic. So just to confirm, one of your design philosophies or bottom lines. So, well, wrong. Let me look at it from a different point of view. For me, when I do plastic, I have water. I have water conveniently close by, and I bring
Yeah,
in
you do
coal.
coal liquefaction,
I,
don't
I
you?
do coal liquefaction, and then coal liquefaction and coal is enough, or with water, is enough for me to make my plastic. So
Hmm.
you don't do that, do you?
I have
Because
independent modules.
you have your independent modules. So you'll make your petroleum gas, you'll ship that in, and then you'll ship in your coal and you'll combine it together. Because with mine, I just need coal.
Right. But
Coal
you
and
see,
water. Once I've
we're
got coal and
trading,
water, that's it.
those
Yeah.
design philosophies are trading something, right? Those design philosophies um, are trading travel for geographic location. Because what you're saying is that you have to put it near something, a resource, and I'm playing on Earth, and that does matter to me. You know, even if I wasn't
Yeah.
playing on Earth, it is a thing. And I want the flexibility of the independence of saying I can build this anywhere and just simply need to supply it with what it needs to be by train. Now, I have tried to take
Yeah.
advantage of water so that I don't have fucking water trains. Because, yeah, I give you a lot of shit about water trains, but I hate them just
Yeah.
as much as
I,
anybody
I,
else.
I know you do. I know you do.
But having said that, the idea that I can take and make my see this right here, this row is just such a perfect example of what I want. This is a beautiful neighborhood. I bring petroleum and coal and copper and iron, and I get red circuits. Right? And they're just
Yep.
all together. And if I could make these, actually, if I could make these into a neighborhood or a district, these three, because what does it take to make red circuits? Okay, so here, red circuits, if we just go like that, I need 20,000 green circuits. Okay, there's 21,000 green circuits, and that's not enough plastic. I need more plastic, right? So if I could do in my standardized stuff and put all that together and go, okay, there you go. It's kind of like the idea of people who've made blueprints where you just feed it the raw materials. Here's a blueprint for blue science, and all it needs is oil and water and coal, and you
Yeah.
just hook up
Yeah.
the stuff. Well, that's sort of what the idea of a neighborhood or a complex or not a complex, but a district is. You give it certain basic materials, and you get an output material, and all of your traffic, air quotes, is external, not internal. And that's sort of what I've done here with the military, is that I've tried to minimize the external traffic by putting the dependent components next to each other. So that the trains, the one that's feeding yellow ammo to red ammo, is right next to each other. It's a I don't have to worry about it exiting or transiting across the base. And that actually is one of the points I wanted to make about your plastic idea. When you build a mega factory like that, where it's one big plastic factory, what you're doing, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw this in your face. What you're doing is you're creating a choke point.
Well, except I'm not, because I build multiple of those.
Okay, but are they?
I don't.
You get my
I
point
don't have
though.
a plastic.
You are
Well, you're
creating
right.
a yeah, and I'm trying
I'm
to
creating a choke point, and I distribute those though.
right.
So I've got multiple plastic factories,
So you
and
have
I
lots of
distribute.
choke you daddies.
Yeah, but it's gentle choking
Okay.
with consent.
Yes, yes. It's as long as your what is it? Your escape word is not harder.
Yeah.
But hi, kitty cat. Yeah, you're back to what are my philosophies, design philosophies that are this is either going to work or this factory or I'm not going to successfully do a 3-hour 10K megabase. So number one is the simple rail setup I have that is tree and branch.
Yep.
Number 2 is double-headed trains. Number 3
Yep.
is this